Hey, it's your friend Choice CJ here, and this is going to be my team builder in battle for what I'm calling the wildcard round of the MPL playoffs. So it's wildcard round because quarterfinal round is sort of like the round that's before the semifinals, but to me quarterfinal implies that there's 8 teams that are alive, but there's only 6 teams that are alive. Basically, there's 2 divisions, and the top 3 from each division ended up advancing, but those top seeds get buys for this round of playoffs. So there's only 4 teams battling in 2 different games this weekend, and so that's why I'm calling it wildcard round, just because that seems like a little bit more broad in terms of its definition. It's not necessarily like a quarterfinal round. But I digress. We're going up against Root and his NJ Brobats. Make sure you go down in the description and check him out below. He and I battled previously this season. I think it was week 5. Pretty sure it was week 5. We were 2-2 headed into the match. And he was able to do quite a bit of damage to us with a Sword Stance Decidui, which is definitely spooky. And so I'm definitely aware that that thing is a major threat now. My main counter to a set like that would be my Muck, and I left that on the bench last time. I'm not doing that this time. So we'll have to see if he chooses to bring a same or similar set. I've brought a lot more setup options, I think, in this matchup than I brought the last time. And my team is a lot different. So I have Halucha now, I have Latias, I have Bronzong and Rapidash. I dropped my Infernape. And that Infernape actually has wound up being on Root's team. He previously had Darmanitan, which is, I think Infernape is overall a better Pokemon, but Darmanitan I think was just a slightly bigger threat overall versus me. So that's pretty funny to note that Infernape ended up getting added to his squad. I'll just read over the whole roster real quick. You guys obviously see it on the screen, but he does have Noivern, Alolan Persian, Latios, that's Mega Latios, mind you, Tauros, Infernape, Galvantula, Miltank, Decidueye, Scizor, Primarina, and Donphan. So a lot of major threats, a lot of speed. You'll notice that he has Miltank at base 100 as his 7th fastest Pokemon. Obviously Miltank isn't a Pokemon that really runs speed that often, but it's just sort of crazy that his speed tiers are so top heavy. Obviously Galvantula is is kind of the lowest of his quote-unquote offensive. That Infernape, since they're tied at 108, those are the slowest of his offensive mons. So the fact that he has even more than that is wild. Mega Latios, really scary. I'm not bringing what I would consider to be my best defense for it, which would be Empoleon of some sort. Because Empoleon can deal with almost any physical or special variant of Mega Latios. He did bring a physical DD Latios versus me last time, so that's important to note. Scizor is pretty scary. I'm not actually bringing my fire type to try and deal with Scizor. He left it on the bench last time, so I'm not exactly sure what his thought process would be there. But hopefully I can overwhelm his Scizor with a lot of the setup that I have and just make it not so spooky. Infernape is hard to deal with because I don't deal super well with fire types. Better than I did before, but still not great. Primarina has no switch-ins. Yeah, that's my main thoughts. Everything on his squad is really good. This is definitely one of the best rosters I've faced. I noticed the same thing about Automatic's team in the last week, but there's just not a weakness on this thing. The quote-unquote weakest Pokemon is Miltank, and Miltank's actually really solid defensively, and gets the right coverage moves so that it's not so easy to exploit with Substitute and things like that. So anyway, let me just break down the team real quick, and then we'll get into this battle. So we do first have a fast, bulky regular Latios with Roost Toxic and Bolt Beam coverage. This is my response for dealing with Infernape. It's a little bit tough for me to not have Psychic on a moveset that's supposed to deal with Infernape. But I felt like Bolt Beam hit the whole team pretty hard. And I didn't have Toxic anywhere on the team. And I thought it would be really valuable to have Toxic somewhere on the team. And so Latias was really the only Pokemon that I could spare the room on it. I'm sure Thunderbolt almost 2 KOs Infernape anyway. So we are making sure that we outspeed Infernape with this EV spread, practically max speed, enough for Infernape, and then the rest into HP and Fizz Death. So hopefully Latias can stand up versus that Pokemon. Latias has other usefulness as well. It can switch in really easily on Donphan. At least in terms of switching into Earthquake. Obviously, Donphan gets Ice Shard, and it does also get Play Rough. I can use this to switch in probably to most Miltank sets, and I can potentially Toxic that thing, so that's really nice. So yeah, just a kind of a bulky, annoying Pokemon in general. I almost went with like Calm Mind, Bolt Beam, but yeah, Toxic I wanted more. Next we have Piloswine. This is the exact same Piloswine that I brought versus Root the last time. Mixed defense just makes me as capable as possible with dealing with any version of Mega Latios. So like Fizz Def versions aren't going to be doing it, physically offensive versions aren't going to be doing too much, especially offensive versions aren't going to be doing too much. We can kill almost any variant with a combination of Icicle Crash into Ice Shard. So that's going to be really important. Hopefully this thing isn't so pressured by Mega Latios that I can't get up Rocks, just because Rocks are really useful in this matchup for chipping down like Infernape as it tries to U-turn in and out and stuff like that. Scizor as well, the same applies. So that's why we have Piloswine on the team. Next we do have a Mega Blastoise with a similar moveset to before, but a slightly different EV spread. I think we brought like maybe either slightly more especially offensive invested last time, or more physically offensive or physically defensive invested last time. I don't remember exactly. We also didn't pack nearly this much speed. So this much speed I believe is enough for a 0-speed Donphan, or sorry, like a max speed Donphan. So if I go 252 plus and I go there, it's way more than that. So maybe it's enough for a max speed Decidueye actually. Let me do this. Thanks for bearing with me as I do this live, guys. Oh no, it's not enough for that. So it must be like Decidueye speed creeping something, or maybe it's for max speed Scizor. I'm not going to waste any more time like going through and looking at the exact numbers. But definitely has a lot of speed investment, just because like I want to be able to hit some of his Pokemon before they can hit me, of course. The Spadef on this thing, like, so I don't have a Primarina switch in proper on my team, just because not many teams do. With this EV spread on Blastoise, I at least can live 2 Moonblasts from non-specs Primarina after Rocks. That might be what the speed is for like max speed Jolly Primarina, or max speed Timid rather. So I can hit that, and I can't hit it back super hard. It kind of depends on if it's like max HP, or if it's got no bulk investment. If it's AV, that's of course another story altogether. But I can outspeed it and hit it with at least 2 Hydro Pumps after switching in. And that might be all that I need in order for something like Hawlucha to take it out, or put it in range of Muck. My Muck doesn't have any attack investment this week, so yeah, the Blastoise is just really good here in terms of being fat and applying lots of pressure. He has Galvantula as his electric type, but he doesn't have like he has got Decidueye as well as a grass type, so he has a couple ways to hit it super effectively. But still, like, we're gonna be able to probably outspeed Decidueye, do a lot of damage to it with Ice Beam and stuff like that. Now we're getting into the setup options this week. We have a Workup 3 attacks Tapu Koko, Thunderbolt, D-Gleam, and Brave Bird. Electrium Z, just so we can hit things like Scizor as hard as possible, hit through like an Assault Vest, Primarina if he chooses to bring that. We can blow those things to Kingdom Come with the Electrium Z, which is really nice. If I can set up, like, he doesn't have very good responses to this, like a Brave Bird at +1 should definitely kill Decidueye. The only thing I kind of need chip damage on is Donphan, but Donphan is so pressured this match that I'm not too worried about like missing out on the KO on Donphan with any of my setup mons. Like, Donphan is the proper response to all of them, so hopefully I can overwhelm him with this mon and my other 2 setup sweepers. Yeah, he just doesn't have a switch into this. I didn't even go max speed on this thing, so we are just speed creeping. I think we're outspeeding like Mega Latios, or no, we're outspeeding like a Noivern or a Persian that are speed creeping, that are trying to outspeed max speed Latios. So those should hit like 179, and I'm going to 180. I thought it was a risk worth taking, because like there's a chance that he leaves him on the bench first of all. And then second of all, yeah, if he wants to bring them, he might not try and outspeed anything in between Latias and Tapu Koko. And even if they do choose to try and outspeed me, none of them, like, all their stab moves are resisted by Tapu Koko. And so not that Tapu Koko has amazing bulk to begin with, but at least, like, they can't hit me really, really hard with their stabs. They have to have some sort of coverage or something like that. So that's the thought process with the EV spread here. Next, we do have a Bulk Up Bruised Hawlucha. So I really like this in this matchup because his 2 best Hawlucha counters on paper are going to be Scizor and Donphan, and most of the sets that I expect him to bring are not going to be able to beat Bulk Up Roost. So like, if they want to hit me with like a Play Rough on Donphan, is not going to be able to do too much to me once I start getting up Bulk Up boosts. Scizor has nothing really to hit me super hard, unless he's even like Aerial Ace is kind of like his best move to hit me. It's not going to do that much damage once I get boosted. Yeah, he doesn't have a flying resist even, so like Acrobatics takes care of everything on the team. Drain Punch is just there in case I need some sort of longevity. We have enough speed on this thing to, I don't even remember what this outspeeds. Like, it outspeeds like Scarf Noivern or something like that. We didn't need a lot more speed than that. We could have like tried to outspeed like max speed Latios or something like that. But realistically, Hawlucha's never going to come in without having electric terrain up. So its speed without electric terrain, I decided was not that important. I just wanted to put it all into bulk, just so I could set up bulk ups more easily and then roost and stuff like that. Then last but not least, we do have Curse Recycle Muck. This one's an oldie but a goodie. He doesn't have great ways of dealing with this besides Donphan. And like he can't like Toxic me obviously because of my my typing. It's going to be very difficult for him to take down. We have enough defense on this thing, so that way if he's a max attack Adamant Donphan and we're at full HP, he cannot kill us with 2 Earthquakes. So he should be doing like 75% max with the first Earthquake, and then that's going to proc our Figgy Berry. That's going to get us back up above 75%, and then the second EQ, yeah, like I said, cannot kill. So we can at least get off like 2 knockoffs versus that thing. Get rid of its leftovers or Rocky Helmet or whatever. Maybe it has a 50% berry of its own, just something like that. And then if we can get that necessary damage off on the Donphan, it really opens the door for Hawlucha and for Tapu Koko. So I really like the synergy of these setup sweepers this week, just being able to potentially remove the Donphan. One of these 3 should be able to win. I just don't know exactly which one is going to be. So yeah, that's the team. Now go to the battle. As you can see, Root has brought his Infernape, his Mega Latios, Donphan, Scizor, Primarina, and Galvantula. So no major surprises here. I think like at least the Lati, Donphan, Primarina, and Galvantula all came the last time. Infernape he didn't have on the roster last time, so obviously he couldn't have brought that. He did have the Darmanitan last time, though. That was like the scariest thing in the last matchup, but he actually left Darmanitan at home in that matchup. So he is now choosing to bring his Fire type. I don't think Fire is quite as potent versus me as it used to be, but it's still pretty damn good, especially with Infernape's access to lots of great coverage moves. Scizor did not come last time, but I think Scizor is just good in general. It's going to be hard for me to break that mon with a lot of the members of my team, especially since I did not bring my Fire type, being Rapidash. Last time it wasn't quite as scary because I had the Infernape, which is a pretty good response to Scizor. Didn't bring the Decidueye. He wrecked me with that last time, so he probably left it on the bench figuring I'd over-prep for it. I wouldn't say I over-prepped, but like with Muck and then Hawlucha, like it's just not as good now. It still would have been relatively good, but just not as clean of a sweep. And so, in terms of leads, I actually lead with Tapu Koko. When I was in team preview, I had thought that I was a U-turn variant, because I almost always bring a U-turn variant. I had forgotten that this week I brought the workup variant. So I thought I could pivot out on whatever he chooses to lead, but that is obviously not the case, unfortunately. And so I'm going to lead off with that, and I'm going to have to do my best to play around whatever moves he decides to make. So we're going to hit play. Wish good luck, have fun to Root, and hop on into this battle. Yeah, if you guys notice, the speed in the recording is a little bit funky. I had to do some manipulating to try and make it seem more fluid, so hopefully you guys are not too distracted by that, and you can just focus more on the commentary and everything, all the good stuff. So Tapu Koko comes in, sets up the electric terrain, and he leads Infernape. So like I said, this is not a great situation for me. I'm just going to stay in and click T-Bolt. If he's not Choice Scarf, then I could throw off a T-Bolt versus this thing and do a ton of damage to it. Or more likely he'll be scared out by the T-Bolt and he'll want to go into something else. If he is faster than me, I do technically live a Flare Blitz. If he wants to go for like Gunk or something like that, that would obviously be pretty bad. But I figured like his most likely play is just a U-turn, and that's what he does, and I'm able to capitalize on that by throwing off a T-Bolt versus this incoming Scizor. So the fact that the thing is already so weakened is quite awesome. And I do quite a lot of damage to it. It doesn't look like it has Spadef investment, so I'm thinking maybe it's max HP, max attack. He throws out the Bullet Punch, which does pretty decent damage to me, and I go for Brave Bird. Brave Bird seems like a pretty good mid-ground play to cover like a switch into something like, what do you call it, Donphan. I didn't want to click T-Bolt again, but it turns out that this is actually a Fizz-Def Scizor, so that's how he's able to live the Brave Bird from my Tapu Koko, so that's a really nice play on his part. Then I switch out into my Blastoise, not wanting to give up my Koko because I need the Electric Terrain for Hawlucha. But he makes a really good play. It just U-turns as I switch out. He would know that I didn't want to give that up. He's able to go into his Galvantula. Piloswine is sort of my most obvious answer for dealing with this Galvantula, so I figured he'd go to Energy Ball. I'll go for the Energy Ball, and that would allow my Muck to come in. And then he throws off the Z move here, and so he is going to go for the Gigavolt Havoc. This is really scary, but luckily my Muck has a lot of Spadef investment. And so even though this thing is a Z move, it's boosted by Electric Terrain, and it would kill almost any other Mon on my team. Muck is bulky enough to survive and get off its Figgy Berry for recovery, so that's really nice. We get off the knockoff, it doesn't actually do that much damage because, of course, Galvantula is not holding an item, it's holding a Z Crystal. So here he chooses to go for Volt Switch. I don't know if I went for a Recycle this turn or if I went for Knockoff. But he does choose to bring in his Lottie in either case. I do go for the Recycle, so this is going to get me back up to a pretty good amount of HP, which is really nice. And Lottie is looking definitely scary in here. I don't know what sort of variant it is. In hindsight, maybe I could have just gone hard into Piloswine, because Piloswine is really built to deal with this Latios. But my Muck is probably able to deal with any special variant of Latios, and if it's as long as it's not DD and it's physical, I can outboost it with Curse. But he is DD physical, and so this is potentially pretty scary. I go for a Recycle this turn. This is, I mean, in hindsight, it's a little bit of an unfortunate play because I basically let him set up for free, and now he can kill me with an EQ if he is max attack, but he actually goes for another DD rather than going for the EQ, and I'm like, oh, well, I should do a ton of damage with this knockoff then. But as you can see, I do like maybe 30%, so this is definitely a Fizz-Def Latios. And now that he is at +2, like, he wouldn't have been able to kill me at +1 necessarily because he is Fizz-Def. But because he got that second boost, now he's definitely going to be able to kill, and I was not able to get very much damage off. So this is definitely a scary situation. But I do still have my Piloswine, which is really bulky, and I can potentially take this thing out. So he goes for Zen Headbutt. It's going to obviously do more damage than EQ does. But as you can see, it doesn't even look like it's a 2-hit KO on the bulky Piloswine that I have. So I go for an Icicle Crash, do probably 45% damage or so. The damage calc says that Ice Shard might kill, but it's a roll, and it's hard to estimate exactly how much HP that he's at. So I decide to risk the roll with the Zen Headbutt and just go for a second Icicle Crash. I figure as long as he doesn't kill me, then I'll kill with Icicle Crash. If Icicle Crash misses, that's unfortunate, but then I would just go for Ice Shard roll the next turn. So yeah, overall, Icicle Crash seemed like my best play there, and I'm luckily able to survive the onslaught of Mega Lottie. That potentially could have just won right then and there, if my Piloswine did not kill it. I guess as long as I got off the Ice Shard damage, I can go into Blastoise and throw off the Aqua Jet to kill it, but yeah, it would have been a bad situation. So I sack off my Piloswine, doesn't have too much value left at this point. I go into Blastoise and I click Hydro Pump, just because it hits most things on his team relatively hard. He only has left Infernape, Galvantula, Donphan, and then the Primarina. Maybe I should have doubled into Koko, expecting the Primarina to get in, but I didn't want to catch a U-turn. Maybe he thinks he's faster than me or something like that. But he goes into Primarina. It definitely looks bulky. But my thought process here is I should just stay in here, get as much damage off on it as possible, and then go into Tapu Koko and try and scare this thing out. And it's not like I have anything to switch into a Moonblast anyway. It doesn't really matter. So Yeah, it's just basically I have to sack something, and I decided that I wanted to sack off the Blastoise. I did miss one Hydro Pump, which really stinks, but this damage that I have here should put it in range of like any sort of Thunderbolt that I could throw off here. Like, there's a decent chance that he's Assault Vest, and he could live a Thunderbolt from full, but now I don't think that he can. And so I'm expecting him to want to save the Primarina just because it is so scary in this matchup here. I'm thinking he'll go into Donphan, and I throw off the Dazzling Gleam. On paper, that ends up being a little bit of an over-prediction because he's able to kill me with Moonblast. It turns out he was actually Wakan Berry, and so that's how he was going to be able to, that's how he justified staying in there to be able to live. But the nice thing about just getting off that little bit of Dazzling Gleam damage off on this Primarina is that it does put it in range of Acrobatics for my Hawlucha. So it looks like, it's a 5-2 situation, so you'd think that it wouldn't be that comfortable for me. But Hawlucha is in a position where it can really go in. So Infernape dies to Acrobatics, Galvantula dies to Acrobatics, Scissor dies to any move because of the amount of damage that he has taken throughout this match. And that leaves just this Donphan, and I do have Bulk Up to basically prevent this thing from killing me with any sort of move. You see there, like, I'm now at +2 Fizz Def, +1 attack, and he did very, very little damage there with that Play Rough, like 33%. And so now with another Bulk Up, I'm at +3 defense, +2 physical attack, and he's not going to be able to do really any damage to me. I'm going to be able to go for a Roost, and then with the +2 attack, I went for +2 because if this thing was Fizz Def, I need the +2 to be able to two-shot it with Acrobatics. The only way that this Donphan could have beaten me is if it had Toxic, or if it had Roar. Like, Roar would definitely be the winning move there. Toxic, I don't even think would have been that huge of a deal, because I could go for a move like Drain Punch and get back a decent amount of HP versus some members of his team. So I could give this thing a couple of extra turns, like maybe one extra turn. And then I have my Lottie in, and there's really no way that he can deal with Lottie at this point. He does have Galvantula. I don't think that the Galvantula actually ended up having Bug Buzz based on the team that Root sent to me. I'm not 100% on that. And then Donphan, was weakened to the point where Ice Beam would kill. Scissor was weakened to the point where Thunderbolt would kill. It just is basically he needs to rely on his Choice Scarf and Infernape, getting off U-turn damage versus me until I'm weakened and he can potentially kill with Bullet Punch on Scizor or something like that. Definitely would have been a tough end game. But as it turned out, he did not have Toxic or Roar on the Donphan. I was able to kill that. The Scissor comes in, and he throws off a Bullet Punch. He needs a Bullet Punch crit in order to take me out. But that, unfortunately, doesn't end up happening for him. I had just gotten rid of the Galvantula before the Scissor came in. That leaves it as a 2-1 going up against this Infernape. And we already know this thing is Scarf and not Focus Sash or anything like that. The Acrobatics from Hawlucha is going to be able to easily kill that Infernape. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to give us a 2-0 victory over Root in this wild card round. And that will propel us to the semifinals of the MPL. So it was definitely a funky game because we ended up just having to sack so many things over and over. I didn't get the prior damage on Donphan like I had hoped with Tapu Koko or Muck. But it ended up not mattering. The Hawlucha that I brought was able to 1v1 the Donphan pretty easily. And yeah, once that was taken care of, he didn't have any there was no response on his team to Hawlucha to begin with, but especially with the Donphan not being there anymore. He played really well with that, he built really well too. That Lottie was so spooky, and the fact that he was bulky really put a dent into my plans. Because it was harder for me to sort of revenge kill it. Just one other note about those plays there too. I was really worried about him going for Roost with the DD Lottie that he had there. If he was DD Roost, that would have been really scary. But he said, he didn't have Roost, and the reason he said is because he really needed the coverage. So he had EQs and Headbutt, and then he actually had Ice Beam as his last move. And so I guess that makes sense for hitting Gligar a little bit harder, or sorry, not Gligar, Gliscor, which is otherwise a pretty decent check to DD Lottie. That set still doesn't beat Levitate Bronzong, so I'm not sure I totally agree with his moves there. But it is what it is. I digress. Like, he could have just run like EQ with Dragon Claw, and that would have been the best overall move set. But as played, I was able to take it on with my Piloswine, which was really nice that it worked out for me. Oh yeah, and then after that, like, Primarina was super scary, but I just got off enough damage on it to the point where Halicha would win. So to a win, super close. Next week we are going to be going up against Automatic, and we just played him actually. We uploaded a battle versus him last week. We played him, and we were able to beat him in what was the final week of the regular season. So he and I are rematching. Our rosters have not changed at all. It's definitely going to be a awkward matchup because, like, rematches in general are always awkward. I don't like them too much, especially when I've won the first match, just because I feel like that then gives the advantage to my opponent because they know what sets really worked for me, and they can plan for that, whereas my opponent who's lost is likely to try and switch it up and pick something that is going to work a little differently the second time. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation, but we're going to do our best to make it happen. And yeah, if you guys are excited about the Baltimore Oriolus advancing in the MPL playoffs, I'd appreciate it if you dropped a like and left a sub. And doing so, of course, will help you stay up to date on my MPL games and all of my other latest and greatest Pokemon and gaming content. We've got UBL Week 2 going up next week on Friday, so make sure you check that one out. And if you guys don't know as well, you can catch me now on the WBE main channel. WBE started a YouTube channel this season for their third season of Ultra Sun and Moon. They had a in-between season for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee, but I don't know if that is counting in terms of their numbering of their number of seasons. But I am doing the Pickup Crew video with my good buddy Ben, aka General Tar Heel. So if you want to watch that and listen to what we have to say and get excited about the WBE season, I do recommend you go check that out. So yeah, that's going to do it for me. Until the next time, I'll see you all later.